pillar. So I'll be your moderator for the day. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on cancer survivorship. We are having this cancer survivorship webinar in June, since June is the cancer survivorship month. We've had other activities in this month, and this is just one of them. So we'll have 3 panelists and 1 testimonial. And you are welcome. You can share the link to your friends, tell them to join in. There's a lot that we are all going to learn about cancer survivorship. Maybe there's something we already know, and there's always something new to learn. So thank you for joining. I'll give the platform to our first presenter, Benda Kizaka. Benda works with Kilele. I'll let her introduce herself further.
Let's know what the earphones.
Welcome, Benda. Sorry, you're still muted.
The thing about technology is sometimes we think we know how to use technology and then it fails you. Good afternoon, everyone. I was talking to myself. My name is Benda Kithaka. I'm with Kilele Health. We are an association that works with survivors and caregivers to empower them to utilize their lived experiences and their stories as part of the prevention journey. And I'll explain a little bit further about that. But today I'm delighted to be presenting, and I think Dr. Joy Frida, you had given me about 15 minutes. Can I share 1 slide or 2 slides? So I am going to speak into, I want to present it as a presenter mode. There you go. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So it gives me delight to be presenting today about understanding the basics of cancer and cancer survivorship. And especially I've been requested to focus on prevention in terms of screening, in terms of early detection, in terms of timely treatment, and the effect it has on cancer. Now, just by show of you're able to do a bit of a chat on the chat. Kindly, I would ask that you first just indicate if you have either been through a cancer journey, so you're a survivor or you're a doctor or you're a caregiver, what role do you play in cancer? Just chat with me on the box so that I know I'm not talking to myself. Kindly just put it on the chat box. If you're a cancer survivor, if you're a caregiver, if you're a doctor, if you're what role you play in the cancer control space. And that has a bearing because as we're going on, you will see why I'm speaking into that. Understanding survivorship cannot start before we start with the element of the 4 pillars in cancer control. And that is in screening, diagnosis and treatment, in survivorship, but also there is the quality of life. And before that, there is the community engagement, advocacy, and community mobilization. I can see 3 people have already posted on the chat. Please, if you're a survivor, just identify if you are a caregiver, if you are. Why I'm bringing this up, because when people hear about survivorship, there is the assumption that we're talking about the last piece in cancer care and cancer control. Last piece comes in with the screening modality that were used, the diagnosis that was done, and the survivorship quality of life that is beyond the cancer journey. Why is this important? Cancer prevention, cancer control, cancer management in the community people for you is who am that picture. You may not be able to pick it out because all of us are living beyond Kindly somebody mute the person who is speaking. Thank you. But what I will have you know is that 3 of the ladies on that team are actually survivors, and there is one who is a caregiver. And in understanding survivorship, we need to understand that you cannot tell someone is a cancer survivor, or you cannot tell by just looking at them. It's only in understanding their journey, in only understanding their survivorship story. And that survivorship story starts from the community. From when they had the signs and symptoms or didn't, they went for an opportunistic screening and they were told, we see signs of cancer. Now, at the community level, it's important we understand that the interventions that will be done for cancer control, the cost of managing cancer, the time and the outcomes that come with cancer are determined at the very beginning by the kind of screening, by the kind of awareness that we do in the community, by the kind of cancer interventions that we will have. Let me explain. When we do advocacy and we go to the community, we are trying to make people aware, like for example, in breast cancer, we are making people aware of the signs and symptoms, of the risk factors and how they can reduce the risk factors, or also of the treatment interventions that are available so that we demystify the disease and we stop the disease in terms of early detection. But if you think about it, cancer is not one disease. Cancer is a number of different types of diseases that affect different parts of the body that are shown by the abnormal development of the cells, which leads to cancerous cells that develop in the body. Meaning, at the point of screening, either somebody has already felt the signs and symptoms, or somebody has something, or they attended a screening opportunity where they've been told we see cancer. In terms of the interventions that will be given for that person, once they get that knowledge that there is cancer development, it is determined very heavily on staging, the stage at which they are found. The technologies that will be utilized is also determined by the stage at which it has been found, or the signs and symptoms that are exhibiting. And the knowledge of the doctor in terms of treating this cancer will be determined by will determine the kind of interventions that will be put together. So for example, in some of the cancers that are screenable, the World Health Organization says that we have at least 30 to 50% of cancers can be managed, can actually be prevented through lifestyle modifications. And with that 30 to 50% can determine the quality of life and can determine the treatment outcomes. It also determines the cost and the complexity that we will be having. And it also determines the kind of time it will take for the cancer to be treated, as well as the quality of life. So if I go into diagnosis and treatment, we see cases in our practice in advocacy where we have someone has been told we see signs and symptoms, but it takes a very long time for them to get the actual diagnosis. At that time, cancer is not waiting. Cancer is still developing in the body. If nothing is done at that time, the risk is if we diagnosed early, the treatment would be easier. If we diagnose late, the treatment will be more complex. It will take more financing, and the kind of infrastructure requires somebody to travel long distances for them to access the treatment. Lastly, in terms of survivorship, there is always the assumption that cancer survivorship begins after the treatment has been done. Yet we know across the continuum of care that cancer survivorship starts the moment the diagnosis is made. The moment somebody is told that we see signs of cancer or we suspect you have cancer and we need to do more diagnostics, that person starts thinking about what will be the treatment? What will be the outcomes? Where will I need to access that treatment? What cost will I need? So the questions around survivorship start immediately. And in that question of survivorship, we have 4 pillars that we look at. There is the physical survivorship pillar, where we are looking at the physical body, the effects of the cancer. For example, if somebody has to lose a body organ due to the treatment, or if the intervention that will be given will affect their mobility or their ability to continue doing the normal, the continuous living experience is affected by that treatment outcome. Secondly, they have to think about their mental wellness. And often the question of cancer comes with quite a bit of, in terms of even anxiety, fear, the thoughts about the future and what the future holds with the cancer diagnosis. So there is always the question of, where are we at in terms of the mental wellness of this person, even as we're looking at them dealing with the disease that has been diagnosed. There is the social pillar in survivorship that we have to think about. And in social pillar, we have to look at, how is the person integrated in the community? Who are the people who are going to be around them? Who are the caregivers that will be taking care of them? What about the medical interventions? Who will, for example, if somebody is diagnosed and they have to travel to Nairobi, where will they be staying? What community will they integrate into? Who will be taking them to the hospital to access treatment? All these are questions that come into play. And of course, the last one is the financial. How will we meet the costs of treatment? So survivorship does not start at the end of treatment. It starts from the word go when the diagnosis is done. And therein comes the element of also quality of life. If somebody is affected mentally, physically, spiritually, their quality of life is also affected. If somebody has to undergo an amputation, for example, and their leg is taken off, we have to think about their mobility. We have to start thinking, what will happen to this person's access? I've seen cases and I've seen people in Kilele who have had to modify their life, move closer to the road, leave the house they were living in, move lower downstairs to be able to access that room faster, adjust their lifestyle so that they're able to now deal with the new life that has been brought on by cancer. Why I'm going on and on about this, and as I mentioned, I was only going to show about 1 or 2 slides, is because way before we can start thinking about survivorship, we need to take the lift back to the community and sensitize the community that the treatment outcomes will be determined by the disease staging at which we find the person. That the mental wellness will also be determined by the staging of the disease, the complexity of the treatment, the cost that it will take. All these determinants that become the determinants of survivorship. And lastly, we also have to think about, in terms of the treatment itself, are we looking at what outcomes do we want? Are we treating for palliation? Are we treating for successful elimination of the whole cancer? Are we treating for better quality of life? Will there be side effects to the treatments that the person is going through? And therefore, for me, when I speak to all of us today, my call to all of us is to always look at survivorship, not just a survivorship for the people who have gone through cancer and for the people who have conquered the disease. We should also look at survivorship from the community level when we're doing our outreaches, when we're doing our community sensitizations, to get people to understand prevention is the best form that will determine survivorship, but also early detection, timely treatment, post-treatment follow-up will also determine the quality of survivorship. At Kilele, we're challenging perceptions. We are working with survivors, some of who are represented on this call today. We are working with them to challenge the perception, because often what we hear is stories about people who have either gone through cancer and have passed on, or have gone through cancer and are surviving. We want to challenge the perception that survivorship is everybody's business, and the quality of survivorship depends on what we're doing in terms of enabling the country to be able to better sensitize, better diagnose better treat, and give better outcomes for treatment. We're also inspiring purpose. We work with survivors to equip them with knowledge and skills and expertise in advocacy, so that then we have more people going to the community and speaking about prevention, more people going to the community and saying, this is my journey, but it need not be yours. You can also prevent. We're also motivating behavior change. We've seen quite a bit of development in the community, where we have seen quite a number of quite a number of international global calls to action for prevention of cancer. For example, the cervical cancer call to action, which has brought on an avalanche of people wanting to get into the space to do more. The more we do, the better we will for the communities. And therefore, a call to action is when we go back to the community, let's sensitize people. Survivorship begins at event prevention. That the better the earlier the time of diagnosis, the better the treatment outcomes. I want to invite all of you to join us on Saturday, and I'm about to finish, to join us on Saturday at the Anga IMAX Diamond Plaza. We know cervical cancer is one of the cancers that has the best outcomes if discovered early. We know cervical cancer gives us time, up to 20 years for women to act. And we also know that survivors have a role to play in prevention of cervical cancer. So we are inviting you to join us for a movie on that day. And the reason being, we're seeing our survivors. This movie has been done in Australia, but we have enough survivors in Kenya to also be able to become community change ambassadors who can go to the community and talk to our people to change their ways, to change their behavior, to adopt more of preventative, to create ambassadors for change. Secondly, we're looking at these platforms for communication as a way to engage communities to demand create for services, to also demand create for policy engagement, so that our government continue giving the services that are required for prevention and for early detection. Thirdly, we see it as an opportunity for survivors to also be engaged in behavior change in the community, to become the agents of change that create the demand for more services. For example, working with the Kenco network, I've seen change where even now we have Herceptin through the survivors across the continuum, through the survivors advocacy efforts. There is now Herceptin available to all people who are eligible to get Herceptin. So when I think about advocacy for survivorship, it's about all of us working together to call the community to embrace prevention, to embrace early detection and timely treatment. I think I will stop there so that then later we can have question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you, Benda. That was a very informative session. I want to look at this series of this webinar as sort of a triangle. So not a triangle, a square. So we have the civil society who are doing advocacy on one side. We have the government on one side. We have the doctors on one side, and we have you as the patient on the other side. So we've heard from the civil society, the advocacy that they are doing, and the role that they've encouraged you as a member of the public, as a patient, to take up in this war against cancer. So our next speaker is Dr. Irene Zamu, who is a pediatric oncologist, and she'll just highlight cancer in terms of childhood cancers, the survival rate, how to handle it, and how to reintegrate the children back into society. Welcome, Dr. Nzamu.
Thank you, Joyfrida, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Irene Nzamu. I'm a pediatric hemato-oncologist working at the Kenyatta National Hospital, and I'll be bringing our focus towards the children now, because as we are having this conversation on survivorship, oftentimes children are thought about, and sometimes children are also placed on the side. And so this afternoon, For the next like 10 minutes, we'll just look at surviving childhood cancers. I was requested to just give a brief overview of what we do and what it entails. So we take care of children with cancer diseases in Kenyatta. Cancer is rare. It is a very rare thing. And in Kenyatta, because we are taking care of many children with cancer, there's a temptation to think that it's very common, but it's not. It's only 2% among all the malignant tumors that we come across. And each year, about 400,000 children are diagnosed with cancer, and this is including adolescents. So when you look at the distribution in the next epidemiology looks like in terms of the childhood cancers. We are seeing the commonest ones up there is the leukemias, the brain tumors. The first two, the black and the red line, just tells you our ward is full of children with leukemias. And then the second commonest should be brain tumors. We are not seeing them as much, and because sometimes we miss them. When children are out there with headache, vomiting, we tend to treat them for other things, malaria, typhoid, many other things, meningitis, and sometimes we don't remember to just screen or do a scan and check whether it is cancer. And this whole graph just shows you the distribution of how the childhood cancers look like in our country and generally across the world. This is really the distribution. Next slide, please. So these are the patients that we are taking care of. And now we start asking ourselves, who is a cancer survivor? And Benda has told us. The question is, do children survive cancer? And this is now the message we are trying to converse about during this survivorship month. Because it's always been said that traditionally, 5 years after diagnosis is when you talk about a survivor. But we've been told by Benda, and it is true, that now we are describing survivorship from the moment of diagnosis. So even the little babies that are born already with congenital cancer, from the time they are born and diagnosed, they are already surviving. They've begun surviving that childhood cancer from that point in time. We are also involving the families and the caregivers in this whole survivorship journey. Next, please. So now, when we look at the actual definition from the NCI, it talks about health and care of a person with cancer, post-treatment until the end of life. And the 4 aspects it covers, Benda has taken us through the physical, the psychological, the economic aspects of it. And let's also remember to truly involve the family, the friends, the caregivers. It's our responsibility. When we hear survivorship, it is not their thing, it is our thing. Each and every one of us is part of this survivorship. Now, the next slide is going to show us cancer. The one that comes in we've come different children can survive cancer. If you look at this historical perspective, you can imagine in the 60s and the 70s, 5-year survival for childhood cancer was like 26%, coming to 58%. When you come to around 2020, you can see globally, now you're looking across the board, including the best of centers, more than 80% of children will survive their cancer. So truly, children are surviving cancer, and we must now take it up and ask ourselves, what can we do to ensure their survival is actually matching a good quality of life? Data says that about 1 in every 500 of the young adults between age 20 to 39 is a childhood survivor. So that is a good thing. And again, our families, when we diagnose children with cancer, we've come across a situation here in Kenyatta where we work that they don't even want to attempt treatment. They think it's a death sentence. There is no survival for childhood cancer. And they take the child home, they'll do something traditional or they'll pray. And sometimes we deny the children an opportunity to get staged, to get treated, and to actually survive. So this is really the message, that children do survive, and we need to take it up and spread the word. We look at the effects of the cancer treatment on the little ones. So the chemo, the radiation we give, even the surgeries, all these therapies we give do have effects. And this is why we are discussing what we need to do for them. Next, please. Why do we need to have survivorship care? There is a rapidly growing population of survivors. This is a good problem because we have the patients and they are surviving. That's a good thing. So now we just need to meet the unmet needs of these children as we are treating them. Let's always remember they have all these spiritual needs, social needs that we have to meet. We need to coordinate with our primary health workers that are in the other facilities. Even as nationals, we form a good network. And there are these significant long-term and late effects of the treatments. And there's a difference between the long-term and the late effects, as we shall see in the next slide, because the long-term effects means there are these problems that the children are experiencing during treatment, and these things persist after they finish treatment. And the best example here is fatigue, just being tired, and how children love to play. So when you see a child not playing, so fatigued from the time of treatment and persist even for years after, or even those things that have to do with nerves, those are long-term effects. It's different from late effects because the late effects are the ones that now come later after treatment, affecting some specific organs. So next, please, when you're looking at how to care for our children who are survivors, let's remember all these aspects. The child is at the center, and it's children and adolescents together. For us, growth and development is everything. Children need to grow, they need to develop. We must make sure, even as we treat the cancers and do the medical treatments needed, this child is growing, mentally is developing, emotionally, sexually. If it's a young girl, they've gotten their periods on time, their breast development is on time, everything about their growth. We have to assess their organ functions because we shall see that all these organs can be affected sometimes by the treatment. We have to look at issues of fertility, issues of second cancers, and especially the mental health. And Benda spoke about this very well. Now, when we look at the care team, this is now our role as a comprehensive care team. Each of us who is on this call today, we have a role to play as part of the comprehensive care team for the survivors of childhood cancer. And about 40% of them will need to be referred to one of us, any of us, and there'll always be an issue, not necessarily medical. The issue could be spiritual, could be mental, but they need us to be referred to the care team. And so the care team is multidisciplinary. So it consists of people of different specialties offering different things to just come together and make sure this survivor or this child has grown very well and is able to overcome the challenges that come with the survivorship and the long-term survivorship of their disease. So this picture was just showing the role of our nutritionists. They're in this call, some of them that we work together in Kenyatta, and some doctors who we are caring for the children together are here, is to show you that the nutritionist is as important as the pastor and as the person who is giving the medical treatment. It's a holistic care for survivorship. And so the next slide lists a whole long list of the people that are part of our comprehensive care team. And if you look in this list, you will find yourself there because you are actually one among the very key people that we must work together with when we are caring for our children. And so whenever they are coming for their LTS, means long-time survivor visit in Kenyatta, after we see them, they will need to see one of these people, even if it's a social worker, even if it is the counselor, even if it is the gyna, the dermatologist, each person, the nutritionist, the physio, we come together to ensure that the survivorship journey for this child, because they have a life, we have to look at it that from diagnosis, they are now surviving, the future is ahead of them. It is up to you and me to ensure that they go through it as smoothly as possible, despite the challenges that come along the way. Next slide, please. So when they come to the LTS clinic, what do we do? This is a long-term survivor visit. And so in Kenyatta, this is what we do. We need to just look at their prior therapies, look at complications. We always listen to their concerns, examine them, look at the organs. This is now the medical aspect. A key thing is education, continuous education, creating awareness, talking to them, general health maintenance, how to stay healthy and happy. These children need a balanced diet, they have to exercise. We are focused on their hobbies. What do they love to do? What are their talents? What about school? They are so concerned about missing school. For them, school is everything. It's a life they know. So we need to make sure they are catching up well, and the things they are able to do, they are doing them well, despite the brain effects that can come with the treatment of cancer that can affect the cognitive development. We still have to ensure their full potential is achieved. And they have a chance also to consult with the other specialists. We follow the guidelines that are from the Children's Oncology Group. The website is there. Any of us can access it. If you ever hear of a child with cancer and you want to look at the survivorship guidelines, it's available. And it's an open access website. So our goal is to actually just ensure there's comprehensive integrated care, maximizing their quality of life. Let us make sure the children survive. You know, a lot of times I say, as we have lived, we are adults, we've lived. And yes, we have survivors who are adults. I'm not demeaning that, but I'm trying to make us spare a special thought for the children. Let's educate them. Let's talk to the public, to the family. The child belongs to all of us, even the community. When they know my neighbor's child had cancer, there's a way we need to approach these children. Let's give them positive energy and make sure we are doing what we can to see them achieve their potential as childhood cancer survivors. And then we also train future leaders in survivorship. What have we seen in our clinic when they come and they are part of the survivors, those who finish their treatment especially? Now you can see they are feeling better, you know, a sense of well-being. These young children have adjusted very well to their diagnosis. They can speak about their cancer. They are very confident. This builds their self-confidence because they know they are not alone. We are working together. And for them as survivors, they have a support network. And they have established very meaningful relationships as they go through that journey of cancer. Actually, these children have maybe more meaningful relationships than some of us who are adults. And they learn this as they go through their survivorship journey. And they also accept themselves if they've lost hair, if they've suffered some heart failure or maybe any complication. As long as they are consistently coming for the LTS care, they learn to accept themselves, get a positive outlook on life. And we have actually seen this program being very beneficial to them. Coming to the end, let's remember there are heroes among us. Please, let's celebrate these children. Very tough journey for them to go through. Times, let's remember that they are warriors and that they are actually survivors. Let's put in something positive in their survivorship journey. As we come towards the end, I'll just say that we often forget the spiritual aspect, spirituality, the meaning of life, the purpose of life. I've come to be challenged by treating children. Children understand these things. They pray, they believe in God, they believe in a higher power. And when children have a connection with their spiritual side, it also helps them to cope very well and to go through this survivorship journey victoriously. So as we are having this conversation, let's not forget the spiritual aspect when we are trying to nurture our children to grow as they survive through cancer. Now, in our unit in Kenyatta, we have a comprehensive team. Every specialist that these children would require is available in our hospital, and we have a clinic. We don't have a separate unit for the survivors, but in our clinic, we have a program for the survivors, especially after they have finished their treatment. So it is programmed. We see them once a month for like 6 months, then 3 monthly, every 6 months, then once a year. Then transition them now to adult care. We have a referral network, primary care doctors that can take care of them in the counties. So as I conclude, I'll just say the role of the primary care provider. Please remember when we are working in the health centers and in the community, in the counties, We are the ones to promote the healthy lifestyle, the nutrition, the prevention, the surveillance for these children. Then we have a good network where we keep communicating. Our phones are always on so that we can be able to really optimize the care for these children as they go through their survivorship journey. So in summary, I'm going to say that childhood cancer is rare. It's rare, but it is curable. That's the key. It is curable and they are surviving. Let us just spread the word. When a child is diagnosed with cancer, let them come. Let them not be kept away and they wait for them to die. They survive. It is curable. And our goal is to make sure when we treat them, we reduce those late effects and that they survive with an excellent quality of life. A final quote from a cancer survivor that I know was called Tara Phillips, was 14 years old at the time in the Texas Children's Hospital. This one said, "The warrior is a child," and wrote a poem. So when you see our armor and you think we are calm and mild, remember this one thing: the warrior is a child. So these warriors are children. Let's just allow them to be children. The things that children love to do. The fact that they've suffered cancer and they are battling cancer or they are cancer survivors doesn't negate the fact that they are children. Music, play, hobbies, the things that children do. Let us support them in their survivorship journey. So I'll beg to stop there and I'll be happy to take questions later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rain. I can see the passion that you have for your patients who are the children. And you've just reminded me when we had the survivors function at Nakuru, we actually had a young girl aged 14 years who gave her testimonial on how she was diagnosed with some type of cancer and how she was treated within at least 1 year. And she was able to actually go through her exams. She's in Form 1 currently. And it was very inspiring. And you could see even the healthcare team, when they saw her that day, the way she was dressed, looking very bright, very full of life. You could see they were so proud of her, so happy. They were saying how far they've come, with her, how she would refuse to take some medication, how she would complain of the pain of the injections. So you can see they all rallied behind her during her treatment. And now they were all very happy to see her back to good health, which is really good. So you can see everyone has a role to play. This child had a support system at home. She had a support system in the facility. And you can see at the end of it all, there was a good success. So we appreciate all the good work that you've done. So our next presenter is Dr. Beatrice from MTRH. She will speak now on the adult survivorship. And Dr. Beatrice, you may share your screen. You'll tell me if you're in a position to.
Thank you, Dr. Joy. Are you able to? Oh, sorry.
Yes, we can see it. You can start from the beginning.
Not moving. Sorry, I'm just going to the parts. Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Beatrice Meli, or Chepngetich Meli. I'm a hematologist or clinical hematologist at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. And it's a privilege to participate in this forum, to be able to educate one another, support one another, to just demystify cancer and help us to live healthier lives and just embrace life. I want to thank my co-presenters, Brenda and Dr. Nzamu. Actually, technically, they've touched on what I'm going to touch on. I think probably I might repeat on some of the things that they touched on and maybe just put a little bit more emphasis. So I'm going to talk about cancer survivorship and post-treatment care. And both 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 Dr. Nzamo and Brenda have mentioned that we tend to think about cancer survivorship from when maybe somebody finished their treatment, and then we start looking at that individual as a warrior or a cancer survivor. But we are saying we want to change that conversation. We want from many interactions, even with cancer patients, even in the clinic, as time goes by, they will tell you that going through cancer has been a life-changing experience. Unlike if you've been treated for a simple, upper respiratory tract infection like a common cold or malaria or a simple cut, those things get treated and they don't leave scars. But cancer literally just transcends almost every part of life. And usually at the tail end, you realize that you are either a completely different person or you've had different experiences, so that it's almost a life-changing experience. And that's why we are talking about surviving cancer. As my colleagues had mentioned, more and more people are surviving cancer. And also we have a growing aging population, improved early detection and also treatment. Well, when you look at the current models of treatment, which are usually specialist-led, they still fail to adequately address the physical, psychological, and supportive needs of survivors of cancer. And what is cancer survivorship? We are talking about survivorship, focusing on the health and well-being of a person who has been diagnosed with cancer from the time of diagnosis, and right through when they've been diagnosed, treatment, and even follow-up care, all that. As they go through all those stages, we are talking about if I've been diagnosed, or the process even of diagnosis, how was it? Did it take too long? The people I interacted with during the diagnosis process, from the primary healthcare team, as Dr. Nzamo had mentioned, was I able to be escalated quickly to the specialist-led teams, or it took a longer time? Was there community involvement so that people are aware about this cancer to when the diagnosis has been made and treatment has started? How was the treatment process? How was the side effects that if it is the early side effects, how were they being handled? Was I able to go through that process in a more humane manner? Did I we are talking about surviving through that whole process, the mental, emotional, social, and financial effects of cancer. But so we talked about who is the cancer survivor. It's any person who's been diagnosed with cancer, and this is from the time of diagnosis throughout the balance of life. And yet many times we want to refer to this just from somebody who has completed treatment. My slides are not moving, Dr. Joy.
Could you stop the slideshow?
I'm sorry about that. I've stopped.
Now reshare. Even stop the.
You can share on my behalf.
Okay.
So okay, thank you. So there are different ranges of cancer experience, and all through these experiences, we are talking about like how to survive those experiences. You could have be living cancer free, you've been treated, the cancer has been technically mentioned as it is in remission, and you may live cancer-free for the remainder of your life. You may be living cancer-free for many years, but experiencing maybe some of the side effects, which could be, maybe it could be significantly debilitating, or you could be living cancer-free for many years, but then at some point the cancer relapses and maybe somebody succumbs to it, or you could be living cancer-free after the first cancer was treated and then you develop a secondary cancer. We've had those instances actually, and even some of the chemotherapy that may have been used sometimes predispose you or predispose the client to getting a secondary cancer, and living with intermittent periods of the active disease requiring treatment, or living with cancer continuously without a disease-free period. So all these are different experiences, and we want to see like how can we be able to survive this. These are aspects that my two colleagues had already touched on, because cancer actually transcends all areas in our lives. It transcends our physical well-being, whether it is the functional activities that we're interacting with, our strength. You know, you'll interact with a client in the clinic and they're saying, I'm constantly, I'm just tired. When you look at the investigations, you are not able to really isolate what is the cause of the fatigue. Their sleep and rest may be affected, fertility, or probably they are in constant pain. Talking about the psychological well-being of the patient, they may be experiencing some mental health issues, and this can cut across from anxiety to depression, and probably they live in constant fear that the disease might come back if they're already in remission, and distress that comes from the diagnosis process and the control of the treatment. So when a patient has already gone through the treatment process, usually they will transition to follow-up care, and follow-up. There's follow-up that one was going through when they already being diagnosed. For example, when you're going in for your treatment, but then we are now talking about this survivorship clinic that we want to transition to, and we are encouraging that you should have a personalized follow-up care plan, and this is a care plan that you should plan with your primary care team. And I'm talking about the primary care team at, for example, the oncology center. And we are encouraging participation from the clients we are encouraging participation, because in the follow and ask questions. Sometimes when you're sitting in the clinic, you may find that their caregiver is the one who is asking questions alone, and maybe the client is quiet. But just when you participate in the process, then you're able to feel like you're more in control of the management of your follow-up care plan. And so again, this follow-up clinic will help you in watching recurrence, and that usually is one of the biggest questions that you most of the time you may experience, even as the healthcare provider in the clinic, is this disease going to come back? It depends on many things. It depends on the type of cancer. It depends on the treatment, the type of cancer, and what stage it was being diagnosed. But usually you are able to be guided through by the clinical team. What are the risks that this disease can be able to come back? So at the same time, that clinic will help you. They help you to manage both the side effects which can be experienced from that disease, because there are some long-term side effects that come from treatment of cancer. And sometimes if you're just declared already that you're in remission and you don't come for the follow-up clinics, we may have these debilitating side effects that can really impact on your on your way of life. And therefore, it is important for you to have that continued communication. And at the same time, as I'd mentioned before, the mental health. This can easily be captured. It will be captured in the clinic setting. Mental health is something that is greatly impacted, both at the time when somebody is going through treatment and at the same time when they are just on follow-up. It's usually a huge challenge, and sometimes if we are not keen to look out for those experiences, a patient can, or a client can easily find themselves in a mental health state, in a situation in which could have been avoided. Continue. I understand that I have about 2 minutes. Next slide. And when we are talking about where to receive follow-up, usually that's a question that many clients have, that I have finished my treatment, or I'm at the tail end of my treatment. Can I go, for example, to my primary care team? And I'm just encouraging that you need to bring up that conversation. Let's know that it is possible for you to actually even have the care being decentralized back to your primary care team where you came from. For example, if you went to the Kenyatta National Hospital, and I come, for example, from Eldoret, it is possible for you to come back to Eldoret to the primary care team at Eldoret, and then as long as there is a continuum of conversation. So healthy living after cancer, it's important to know that we need to look at, just the same way Dr. Nzamu had said that you should look at a child holistically, the same way we even if somebody has been diagnosed with cancer, you're still a whole human being, and you need to be able to take care of yourself as a whole, looking at your health, general health, plus and including physical exercise. Next slide. So we are talking about healthy living, and this I think I will probably stop at this slide so that we can be able to have, because I just have 1 minute, and we are talking about maintaining body weight. Try and maintain your body weight within acceptable, according to how, for example, how the nutritionist has been able to advise you, and engage in moderate physical activity. For example, brisk walking, at least 30 minutes in a day, and then you can increase that according to your tolerance. And this cuts across whether you're on treatment or post treatment. We are encouraged to avoid sugary drinks and limit consumption of energy dense foods, and then eat at least 5 portions of a day of a variety of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes. And one of the biggest challenges during cancer treatment and also post treatment is nutrition. And sometimes you are dealing with significant major side effects until you're not able to tolerate even meals. But we're encouraging small, frequent meals, and at the same time, even in cancer, when we after the treatment, you escalate according to how your system is able to handle. Limit consumption of red meats and avoid processed food. Limit alcohol drinks. Avoid salty foods. Dietary supplements are not recommended for cancer prevention. And I think all cancer survivors should receive nutritional care from a qualified nutritionist. So I think I had already mentioned about physical activity and the importance of physical activity. It will reduce anxiety, improve your self-esteem, improve your heart health, maintain a healthy weight gain, boost your muscle strength, which can be some of the chemotherapy regimens that you get can have an impact on your muscle health, and also it gives you a positive well-being. So this is my second last slide, and I think some of my colleagues had already touched that it is not just the cancer patients. We are also for survivorship to cancer survivorship to for that language to succeed and for it to continue to be built, we need to talk across. We need to talk across the healthcare system and also at the policy level. Next slide. So that's why we are saying, let's For example, for the survivors, we need to refine chronic disease self-management and also develop evidence-based cultural appropriate information and resources to meet the needs of post-treatment survivors and to increase awareness of existing survivorship information and resources. For the healthcare systems, I'm not sure even in our country whether we have developed yet survivor care guidelines. I think this is work that is still in progress. Some of the oncology centers do not have survivor clinics, and that we want to improve on that. And then education and training for the healthcare providers. For the policy level, reimbursement for essential post-treatment survivorship care, and then of course funding for more research to be done, and then education of policymakers to increase awareness of survivorship issues. So I think generally the take-home message is that the conversation of cancer survivorship is something that needs to continue. I think generally I feel like it is gaining momentum. Even as, for example, at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, we are slowly transitioning to growing our survivorship clinic. At the moment, you still find these clients with the oncologists being followed year in. Probably some of them have passed their 5-year survival, but having a survivorship clinic is something that is still work in progress. Otherwise, let me take this back to Dr. Joy for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beatrice. That was very informative. You've given us a lot to ponder on. I believe our listeners have benefited. So we've given you the perspective of the civil society, who are the advocacy team. We've given you the perspective from the doctor, and now we'd like to hear from one of our patients who's in the call. Hannah Ngaruya, you can unmute yourself and just tell us a brief history of your journey and maybe what you've experienced, both good and bad, and just what advice you'd give out to the rest of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, my name is Hannah Ngaruya. I am both a survivor and I have also been a caregiver. Now, 5 years before I fell sick, my son, I was diagnosed with cancer and I took care of him. That was 2012. And I would want to mention this for the purposes of caregivers in this meeting, that the stress that somebody goes through as they give care can sometimes be very, very much. When I was taking care of my son, I had similar symptoms, similar pain as he was going through. And I went to hospitals and the doctor said that there was nothing they could see. And I was referred to the counselor in Mpisha Cancer Center. And I remember what he told me, that sometimes the stress is so much that later in life, they find the caregiver coming back to hospital as a patient, the patient. And sure enough, 5 years later, I went back to the same hospital as a patient. So I cannot tell whether that was as a result of the stress that I had gone through. My son was diagnosed when he was 17, but the good news is that he survived it. And the very best news is that he decided to study medicine. So he's actually graduating as a doctor on 28th of this month. So as the doctor, the pediatric says, yes, children survive. And we have that in my house. I'm also a survivor of colon cancer. And I was diagnosed in 2017. I went through extremely difficult treatment. But what happened is that it affected my kidneys. The radiation constricted my ureters. So my kidneys do not function normally. They're aided to drain. So I use nephrostomy bags, tubes, and I also use stents in the ureters to help them remain open. So what I have gone through so much, I have gone to India twice. And what happened is that when I went to India in 2020, Then COVID struck, and then the boundaries were going to be closed. So I came back hurriedly. I was very, very sick. I had just come from theater, and I was required to stay indoors. Now, I will talk about that later. But I want to look at two aspects of survivorship. One is positive. I find it very positive. That to me, it has become a mission. A mission in the sense that now I receive very, very many referrals by people who know my journey. When they have their patients, they want me to talk to their patients. And that I have taken it upon myself to give them the information that I know, that I have experienced, to just shed light to them. What is cancer? What do they expect as they go through treatment? And I also create awareness. I tell them that there are support groups, and they can join support groups because I am a beneficiary of those support groups. I also tell them that I have survived since 2017, and I give them hope. I tell them you can also survive because doctors treat, but God heals. And one reason why I tell them that is because when I was going through treatment, it was very, very difficult for me. A friend of mine brought me a patient who had gone through cancer treatment. And her story was very, very encouraging to me because when she was diagnosed in 2015, she was told that there was no hope, she could not be treated. But luckily, she gathered courage and told the doctor, I am the patient, I have the right to be treated, and so you will treat me. And long and short of that story is that since 2015, when the doctors had no hope completely, to date, that girl is cancer-free. So I tell people that cancer is not a death sentence, and let us not focus so much on the stage, because there is power above the doctor that can heal at his will. So let us not lose hope when we hear that a stage is very, very advanced. Let us do our part and leave the rest to God. And so I take it as an opportunity for me to share my story willingly and tell people what I know and answer the questions that they ask. For instance, there are a lot of people who will not understand why they're getting numbness in their feet. And I tell them it is a common side effect. It's not just happening to you. And you can do A, B, C, D. Because this I did and it helped me. I also tell them about food. And one thing I tell them about food, and one of the doctors has talked about it, is when I stopped going through chemotherapy, because for me, I could not complete, it was killing me completely. And even the doctor agreed that you cannot go on with this. What the oncologist told me is that, Hannah, go home, do not listen to people, eat some red meat, because your body needs healing. And red meat, it is a very good source of protein. So eat, but in moderation. Of course, I wasn't able to eat much, but I know that really helped me. That was advice from the doctor. So I tell people, when somebody has gone through this treatment, when they cannot eat anything. So if it is only that red meat, they are able to eat a few pieces, let them eat for that particular time. Let them regain some energy so that they are also able to be mobile a bit, so that there is blood circulation in their bodies, and so that they don't develop clots, or even the numbness starts to clear. So I encourage people to eat what they are able to eat at the beginning, and then later they can start thinking about serious nutrition, because it is better to eat something for a sick person than not to eat anything at all. Then I also encourage people about a lifestyle, as the doctor has said, as particularly maintaining healthy weight. When I was diagnosed with colon cancer, I always say I can trace where I got that disease from. I had the highest number of kgs I have ever had in my life. And I associate that disease with the weight that I had, because I was working in a very stressful environment where I was seated at a computer for the longest hours. So I tell people, even when you're working, it doesn't matter how stressful your work is, remember your health is what will carry you through life. Work will come to an end. So get a way of taking care of your health, dealing with your weight. Don't just allow yourself to go down with so many kgs. And there is so much about, I can talk about that with regard to encouraging people in matters to do with eating and their lifestyle. But then there is also the other side of it, of survivorship, which I want to call negative, though not so much negative. And this is about the unseen challenges of a survivor. I said that I live with chronic kidney disease as a result of side effects of the treatment. So I use nephrostomy bags. I know the doctors will understand what the nephrostomy bags are, and it's an extremely difficult condition because that dictates how I dress. That dictates how I sit when I have to sit. That dictates a lot of things. And then those bags are expensive. Those tubes have to be changed every 6 months. The stents have to be changed in theater every 6 months. Because of those foreign gadgets in my body, I get infection. Right now, I'm going through very, very expensive treatment because of a recurrent infection. Doctors here know Invans is very, very expensive. Right now, there is no Invans in the country. It's become very, very difficult to get. I'm taking a daily dosage of 9,500. I'm required to take 10 of them. These are unseen challenges for me as a survivor. I cannot go telling this to everybody. I know we have other survivors who have to use urostomy bags. Others have to use colostomy bags. Others, as a result of the treatment, have to use pads throughout because sometimes the radiotherapy gives discharge. I know there are people who have to use diapers. These are unseen financial and expenses that you cannot go telling everybody. So that you find somebody who has survived the disease still incurs very, very heavy bills. And sometimes you might find them down and you do not understand because on the surface, you do not see where this kind of money is going or how it is being spent. Now, there is the other aspect of psychological part of it. As the doctor has said, yes, it is true, anxiety. When I have to go for PET CT, I'm a human being, I have some anxiety. Sometimes I get the results and I am afraid of looking at the results. Then there is you can get to some depression even sometimes when you don't know. When I came back from India and I was required to stay in the house, I was very sick. I nearly got into a depression because a time came when the doctors told me I should not even leave the house. Even if I had an issue, the doctors told me, we do not want to see you in hospital. Your immunity is so low and the COVID is very high. So we are afraid that if you come here, you will get complications. So I remained in the house throughout and I could not even allow people to come and see me. That was a very, very difficult time. Then because of the expenses that a survivor has, like what I have already, there are times I honestly feel guilty that I'm taking so much resources from the family to treat these side effects. And then sometimes if I'm not careful, I could also find myself getting angry and saying, now why did I have to go through treatment that made my life worse than it was before I started this treatment? It makes it very painful. It makes it very expensive to maintain and so on and so forth. So there is a tendency sometimes of feeling guilty, like, you're spending so much money. Then there is also, because people do not know what a survivor goes through, sometimes you find unrealistic expectations from the society. Like you will find my name put in a WhatsApp group for a fundraiser for another cancer patient, and then I am looking at it. I'm preparing to go to theater. For example, like now on Tuesday, I will go to theater to have the stents removed. Now, I find myself in such a group. I don't know what to tell somebody because I know the kind of a bill that is awaiting me. And we all know that when you have gone through cancer treatment, insurance companies do not want to touch you. So sometimes you're on your own, you have to get this money from your pocket. So there is that unrealistic expectation from the society. Sometimes it's, of course, because they do not know. Other times, there are times you could wake up and just feel very, very tired or just unwell, and you just want to rest. But you cannot tell exactly, where you have the pain or what you're feeling, but you're just low. And some people want you to get out there to do ABCD, to participate in this and that other activity. So that is also a challenge that comes, but somehow one has to find a way of dealing with it. At times also, I find people who have not had experience of this disease giving wrong information to a patient. And that is very, very challenging because, again, you have to be very careful. You want to tell somebody, vegetables are good, eat as much as you can, eat fruits, eat this. But then you find somebody is telling the other person, no, you should not eat ABCD because Dr. So-and-so, who treats this and that other way, says you should not. So again, when you want peace, but again, you want correct information given to that patient. So you find yourself in that kind of situation. Then there is also, of course, the other part that has been very difficult. You meet so many people when you're going through treatment. Now, at the cancer centers and other places, then you find that so many people are dying, especially in the last few months. I have lost so many people who have been going through cancer treatment. That, to me, as a human being, it hits me very, very hard. Like somebody I've been working with, for this number of months, and then suddenly something just happens and the situation becomes worse. There's a complication. The next thing you know is that the person has passed on. It is not easy. It is not easy to experience that. It is not good news at all, because you keep, in a way, you think about yourself, when you hear a disease has recurred, I have said I'm in a support group, I'm in 3 groups. There are times when participants in the group will say, oh, unfortunately, the disease has recurred. Then you get worried yourself and wonder, could it also happen to me? So there is that. But the good news is that, as the pediatrician, that is the pediatrician, talked about the spirituality part of it. Yes, that is what helps me. Every time I have such fear, I have such anxiety, I see people dying, I remind myself one thing, that it is not over with me until God says it's over. And because I'm a Christian, I console myself and I'm able to console other people that now this has happened to that person. It must have been in God's design, God's will, that their life come to an end. We are soldiering on and we will continue to live as long as God wants. So it gives me some satisfaction, some consolation. And it keeps me going on and hoping that I will live to see my grandchildren and even great-grandchildren. So I have that good news that I have seen my son go through it and is now very successful. He's out there now to help other people deal with the sicknesses. I know the passion he has. He tells me, don't you ever hesitate to encourage somebody using my example, because this is what I do in the hospital all the time. When a patient comes crushed, hopeless, I tell them, no, there is hope because I am also a cancer survivor. And so it gives me a lot of satisfaction when he is able to talk about it. So I encourage everybody, let us not keep what we are going through to ourselves. Let us not hide it. For me, when I share, I get encouraged. I get more hope. I get more encouraged go on. And I can see the joy that other people have when they hear my story. They get very, very encouraged. So that is in a nutshell what I would want to say about my experience. And I would want to say this far, it's been by God's grace. And I believe he will continue taking care of us and all the other survivors that I have seen on the screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hannah. I think that was a bit heavy for every one of us. We really felt your journey. We really empathized with every step of it, both as a parent to a sick child and now going through it yourself. And we applaud you for your courage, for sharing this information, for even encouraging other people. And we wish you all the best. We pray that you will be with us for much longer. Yeah,
Definitely.
Yes, we pray for good health and for
Thank
good
you.
recovery, and even for more resources to facilitate all that you need. So we wish
Thank you
you
very much.
all the best. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I can see from the chat also people are very encouraged by your story, and they're saying it's really encouraging for them. So maybe, do we have any questions? I cannot see any question. I can see comments. I can see good feedback. Even to our panelists, Dr. Nzamu and Dr. Beatrice, you've done well. And Benda, you've done a good job. So in case anyone has a question, if you want, you can also raise your hand. We'll give you a chance to maybe speak and give us your question to the panelists, or just any word of encouragement to the rest of us. I think one of my take-home messages from what we've spoken today, first of all, we have to look at our role. You know, everyone is playing a role in this fight against cancer, and also just to encourage our survivors. So as a community, what are we doing, first of all, to prevent ourselves from getting cancer? Healthy living, everyone has spoken about it. So we need to reflect. Let's not just be, the Bible says, the preachers of the words and not the doer. So we need to interrogate our lives. We need to support all the activities in terms of cancer vaccination. Let's take our children for the HPV vaccine. Any child from 10 to 14 years, they're eligible. So please take them for that vaccine. Let's go for frequent screening. If you're above 35 years, ensure annually you do a full checkup, you do your pap smear, you do your mammogram. And in case there's anything, it will be caught early and it will definitely save a life. And remember to update your NHIF. Most people don't take their cover until when something has happened, and that has its own repercussions. So we encourage everyone, just enroll to NHIF. The 500 bob will cover the whole family. We understand there is challenges in terms of the current economic crisis, but disease does not know that there's any other challenge. It will just come on its own, you know, so let's try to mitigate that as well. I think those are among my take home. Do
Can
we
I
have
something, Joy?
Yes.
Thank you. So this is Dr. Beatrice. I just wanted to applaud and thank Hannah for sharing her experience. And I think if we were to give to define who Anna is, we would say like a cancer survivor mentor. Okay, so and this is a conversation that we even like at Moit, we have a team of patients who have a condition called multiple myeloma at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. And this recently we were having a training on caregivers and the patients themselves. And we were having volunteers on how somebody can be considered a multiple myeloma mentor. And that means you go through training on even how to communicate better, and a patient can be referred to you to be able to encourage them, and maybe you share your experience. And you can see Hannah even doing it free of charge. And I'm sure by sharing our experience, many patients have been encouraged. And I think this is to Joy and your team. That is actually a platform that is untapped. It's where cancer survivors can be mentored to be other mentors for others, and they can be official, and actually it can be a term that is protected, so that patients can be referred to them to be able to share their experience. And sorry, and Anna also shared her experience with like mental health. I think it is very important to know, and I think that's many times we may forget to put our focus there, because the advantage of visiting either a psychological counselor or any mental health specialist is to be able to take you through the process and help you to manage your expectations. It's what Hannah experienced, for example, when she came back and was almost going into depression. It does not mean that Hannah was not being able to handle herself very well. Actually, it's not even surprising that she almost went into depression. And because those are things we expect, we would preemptively try and prevent them by visiting a counselor. And if the psychological counselor looks at that you may be experiencing some things, that they may refer you even to a psychiatrist to be able to manage those symptoms. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Benda, you have something?
Yes, I would like to just add on. I think, Hannah, your story is truly inspirational. And secondly, you've really touched on the issues of survivorship, starting from personal management to even using your story to inspire the community to action. And what I just wanted to add on, I think her story has covered everything. The one thing, though, that we need to recall and to remember, both as practitioners, caregivers, or survivors, is that stigma is really the community. And one of the reasons why many people don't go to get screened is the fear of cancer. And we need to demystify cancer. We need to build stories around survivorship that will inspire others to see that if Hannah can go through this, if Joanne can go through this, if Mary and all the other people who are on this call who have identified as cancer survivors, if they can go through this, then I too can, and therefore early detection saves lives and also builds to a better survivorship experience. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think we've learned a lot today. Thank you.
Thank you, Benda. Do we have anyone else wants to give any comments? Hannah?
Okay, thank you. Now, I just want to add that, yes, I have said it before in such a forum that it is important. We need to focus on the success stories, because always when we look at the media talking about cancer, a lot of times it's about the sad endings. And that really puts somebody into a position where there is no hope. One thing I keep telling people, much as I know when you go to hospital and when the doctor is dealing with you, it is something that is always mentioned. I tell people, don't you ever ask a patient what stage it is. Because for me as a layman, when you tell me stage 2 or stage 3, clinically, I don't know what the difference is. And a lot of people do not know what the difference is. But because of a little education, I know 4 is higher than 3. So if I tell you it is 4, or you tell me it is 4, you will see the reaction on my face. And my expression will kill you, because it will show you hopelessness. So one thing I tell people when you're dealing with people going through this, please don't focus on stage. Stage is doctors. They are the ones who have studied, they are the ones who know. So it is important that we do that. We are very, very careful about the kind of questions that are asked to people going through treatment. So if we can use our media to let people know, yes, people survive and cancer is not a death sentence, then that would be one way of dealing with stigma. Then I would also want to say, maybe, or something that has really helped me is that my background is counseling. I'm a counselor by profession. I'm a teacher, and I'm also a counselor by profession. So that helped me manage my situation. And I think that really helps me when I'm dealing with other people going through the same. So yes, as Dr. says, we can partner, and I will be willing to help where I can. Because I keep saying, I do not know why God spared my life. Maybe it was for a cause as this. So yes, Brenda, I can do that if there is a platform created for that. Then another thing that really helped me and helped me navigate through that extremely difficult terrain is the support I got from my family. And so I also talk to caregivers, and I tell them, you need to be together as a family. And you need to keep checking each other, because if you leave this burden on one person, it is extremely heavy. So show love to this person. Please understand, because cancer treatment is extremely difficult. There are times they will behave in a way you do not understand. Please be patient with them and be together as a family. Deal with this monster as a family. It is not an easy task. So for me, I have had an extremely supportive family, and I think that is why I have managed it that very well, even though it was that difficult. So let us encourage people to also work as families as they're giving care. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah, for that. I'm projecting a name on the screen. I believe a good number of us here are healthcare professionals. We are encouraging, as part of your role in early diagnosis, get some content on cancer detection. You can find this M-Saratani on Google Play. It's an application that you can use on your phone, and you can get materials. So it's a full course on 11 cancer types that we are seeing in our country, so that when you start seeing certain symptoms, let's refer these patients in good time. We are seeing sometimes the patients are referred late, and that is why maybe the outcomes are not as good. So I'd like to just share that bit. Okay. I think if we don't have anything, Peter is asking about what causes cancer. I'll give Dr. Nzamu maybe just 3 minutes, summarize what causes cancer, if you're able to.
Thanks, Joy. Yes, what causes cancer? That's a loaded question because it's very broad. But Peter, what we would say is that there are some genetic, we call them mutations, but just let's say something goes wrong in the chromosomes or in the genes of a person, and when a particular area or a particular location in the gene goes wrong, it now sends the wrong signals that could cause abnormal multiplication of cells in the body. And if these cells continue to multiply and multiply over time, that is how the cancer would develop. Now, especially for children, most of the cancers are genetic. When it comes to adults, for us as adults, there's a lot of lifestyle exposures that can predispose us to getting cancers. And now to answer this question, you now have to break down to the types and ask, for example, what's predisposed to liver cancer? Now, if I do smoking, alcohol, these lifestyle issues, sexual behavior that is predisposing me to HPV infections can predispose to cancer of the cervix. And so to answer this question, we would say it is both genetic and environmental or lifestyle related. And then now you narrow down on which particular cancer we are talking about to look through. Remember, there is also a good proportion of the cancers where we say idiopathic, where it is unknown, especially in children, where we will not even know and research is still going on for some cancers in children to actually find out what caused them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nzamu. I think if I remember correctly, we normally classify the causes into two, modifiable and non-modifiable. So the non-modifiable, we can't do much. It could be your genetics, yeah, such things that you have no control over. But the modifiable risks, that is where now as patients, as just normal citizens, we need to work on that. And that is, first of all, tobacco is being raised as a risk factor for everything, for all types of cancers. So tobacco use should be stopped. Excessive alcohol, excessive food, any food can actually just still be very dangerous. So let's focus on the modifiable risk factors. Galgalo, you have a question or a comment?
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Okay, my name is Galo Wilhade. I'm a nurse oncologist by profession. And I would just like to say, like, I'm touched with the she has actually affected her life going through this cancer journey, starting with her own child being a caregiver to herself now being diagnosed with the same. I'll also say I've gone through the same journey, being a professional and also taking care of my own father. Being a caregiver is not an easy job. It actually made me also to quit my job just to go in the hospital to be there with my father. And it is true, whatever she said, that at some point you can find yourself in the hospital being treated for a disease after being a caregiver. So I've been able to actually understand what cancer is all about since I decided to take the course, the training, and actually our patients need us as professionals to be there for them. So I've been encountering so many challenges in the field, patients asking me a lot of questions, and then concerning, especially when it comes to nutritional advice. And I want to agree with Hannah about eating habits. You can't limit a person who is undergoing this treatment because of the nutritional advice, like you must eat this and stop this. No, we allow them to eat what they feel they can eat at that moment. And then I have a question before I conclude to Dr. Beatrice about, she talked about healthy lifestyle. So my question goes out to, when you're advising someone about alcohol use and limit, how many bottles can you tell someone to consume either daily, weekly, or monthly? I would like her to help me on that kind of, because it has been challenging me all along. Thank you.
Thank you, Galgalo.
Yes.
That's a tough question. So the you know, the generally it would be advisable that if it's possible, you completely like cessation of alcohol, just the same way cessation of smoking if you're smoking. But I really haven't come across research like how much alcohol is safe. And you know, alcohol is a debate that I even on a personal level I find challenging, because even when you meet it, even with a team like psychiatrists, they would recommend, you know, at the end of the day, it does expose you to, like if you're going through treatment, you it's hard to put a finger. Most of the time from the clinic experience, I would just tell patients you'd rather stop taking alcohol. But at the same time, you don't want, let's say, for example, your religious views to impact on the recommendation that you're giving a client. When I was looking at the guidelines, they had mentioned, I think I have to look it up, maybe Dr. Joy, just as you're concluding, they had mentioned like almost like a glass in a week, but it was on Medscape. Yeah, but otherwise, that is why when I was presenting, I just put it as a general term, like limit alcohol use. Yeah, but I think that it is really varied. You'll meet a doctor who will tell you stop, because even for clients who are dealing with alcohol abuse, for example, it's hard to be able to advise them whether to stop or to limit. Yeah, it's a question that is hanging there, but I would generally recommend that that any drugs other than the medication that you're using and regular food, yeah, you would rather avoid that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody else, Dr. Joy, do you have any comment on that?
Dr. Beatrice.
Yes.
Actually, it's true. It's difficult to tell someone one glass, because one glass of beer and one glass of something like a spirit will have very different alcohol content. So we can't really advise someone like take this one glass, So generally we would say avoid. But if you can't avoid, even you know your limit, if you are taking a whole bottle in one sitting, cut it down to like half, then continue cutting it down until you're able to stop completely and don't rely on it. And we've seen even the medications that we are taking, even something as simple as Flagyl that many people just take maybe for a stomach ache, that Flagyl cannot be taken with alcohol. If you dare take, you will become very, very sick. So you can see if you're maybe a cancer patient, or if you're taking care of a cancer patient, you cannot mix any medicine with alcohol. So really that's a contraindication. And if you are healthy, just remember alcohol is like a poison. So why would you want to take a lot of poison? Even a little poison, why would you want to take? So it's something you have to decide on a personal level on what you are going to do. Yes, to just take care of your body. Okay. Yeah. Do we have any last thing? We've reached our time limit. Charles, you're welcome to make your announcement.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joyfrida. And indeed, thank you very much to our speakers for today. We can all agree that it was a very informative session. And I believe we've all learned something. So thank you very much, our speakers, Beda, Dr. Irene, Dr. Beatrice, and our cancer survivor, Hannah. So thank you also to our participants for joining us today. This is the first of our webinars in a series. We are going to be having these webinars on a monthly basis for a year, brought to us courtesy of Janssen Pharmaceuticals. So we would like to invite you to attend our subsequent webinars. I believe we will be in a position to see our promotional materials, our posters in the upcoming webinars. So we would like to notify you that and to welcome you also so that we can learn together. We are going to be focusing on specific cancers. Next month, we are going to be focusing on Kaposi sarcoma, and we would like to invite you to learn more on that specific cancer. Then in the future months, we are going to focus on lung cancer, leukemia, and such other cancers. And I know at the end of it, we are going to create awareness on cancer, and we get to learn a thing or two. So I've said I'm from Kenya Network of Cancer Organizations. We are the national umbrella body of cancer civil society organizations in Kenya. and we have a membership of around 40 organizations. So if you are a cancer organization or you know somebody who runs a cancer organization, you are free to join us so that we can together work towards controlling cancer in our country. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to our speakers, to everyone else. And I think for us, it's just to wish you a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. I think as we all go, let's just remember that cancer is not a death sentence. Yes, we've lost a good number of people, but we also have survivors. Hannah is representing them here with us. So let's just encourage everyone out there. If you know someone who's gotten a cancer diagnosis, just encourage them as they go through the treatment that they can beat the disease, support them financially, support them with social support, show up with them, and that encouragement will go a long way. So thank you so much. Let's go back to our towns. Let's tell people about vaccination, about screening, about early diagnosis, about the treatment that is now within reach. And we hope for the best. Let's all stay hopeful. So thank you again for joining us for this webinar. We shall meet another time. Have a good evening. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.